what's your secret? You got the kind of vibe that leaves me speechless. It could be model multitasking genius. Yeah, you got it all.
Welcome to Breakthrough Conversations with Rhoda and Company, where we explore the human side of leadership, one meaningful conversation at a time. I'm your host, Rhoda, and today we're diving into what it truly means to lead with heart in today's ever-evolving workplace. I am truly honored to be joined by a very special guest, Heather Younger. Heather is a TEDx speaker, a workplace culture strategist, a contributor to major news outlets, and an author of 4 powerful books on leadership and employee engagement, including my favorite, Leading with Heart. Her voice has become this guiding light for leaders looking to create more compassionate, more inclusive and high-performing culture. So in today's episode, we're going to explore Heather's personal journey and the core principle behind heart-centered leadership or human-centric leadership, and how compassion, it isn't just a soft skill, it's a transformative force for business success. So if you're a leader looking to connect more deeply and you lead and to lead more effectively and inspire your team, this one's for you. So let's dive in. Welcome, Heather.
Oh, thank you for having me. Really means a lot to be here with you.
It means so much more to me. I just wanted to start off with, I know you've written 4 impactful books on leadership, including The Art of Caring Leadership, where I was honored to be on your podcast and then quoted in your book. Can you share with what inspired you to begin writing about leadership, and then how your personal professional journey shaped the messages behind your books?
Well, I mean, the inspiration of writing about leadership came from me working with leaders that weren't so great and those that were.
Yes.
So I was like inspired equally by those who weren't so great as I was with those who were. And I felt like, I would do like a little bit towards it, then I'd say, oh, I think I should do another thing. So for example, when I started the podcast, I was like, I just think there's people who listen to podcasts. So I just want to have another way of kind of evangelizing the message around caring leadership. Actually, it was called Leadership with Heart, which is the name of the podcast. And then after I got maybe to like number 25 episode, and I was listening to all of the people, including you, that were on the other end, I was like, dang it, these people are brilliant. Like I'm learning so much. I am personally learning so much. So I probably should share with more people. And that's when I decided to do the Art of Caring Leadership book, because after listening again to those people, I think I made 80 voices in that book, because I was like, dang, there's just so much intelligence here that if we can spread it about, I think we can change the world. And so it was just another medium to be able to put that forward. My personal message and my personal history. I think that as a child, I oftentimes felt like maybe my voice wasn't heard as much. And while I felt valued by my parents, there were situations or times when sometimes my extended family made me feel like an outsider. So I'm from an interracial, interfaith background, and my mom's parents were really open to the marriage. The interfaith part was my mom was white and Jewish, my dad was Black and Christian. And so oftentimes the other side of the family just was grappling with the fact that there was that difference, and then I was kind of on the outside. And I felt oftentimes like I didn't feel like I had a voice, like I wasn't included in my own family. And then there was also like some addiction that was going on in my home, and as an only child, I had to go through a lot of just kind of tough times by myself. And I remember just oftentimes not feeling like my voice was heard, or like I was even seen in many of those circumstances. And I just decided, like, in those moments, that I wanted to create a world where people did feel heard, feel heard, they felt valued, they felt seen in their own skin. And so it was just a huge passion that, became of mine, almost like a mission or calling to be the person who created that voice for other people.
Yes, I remember your TED Talk. And that's when I found you. I remember that was the first time I heard of you, and I listened to your TED Talk, and it inspired me deeply. And I remember you talking about how you didn't feel seen or heard or felt like you had a voice as a younger person. Wouldn't it be very special and phenomenal if those that were in leadership positions truly understood the power and the influence that they have on the psyche and mental well-being of the people they lead. And it's unfortunate that not many people get it. It seems like the people with the caring leadership spirit and who really understand that are the minority. But you're doing the work to try to help those that are at least open to becoming better and being more effective, to have some tools and resources to better understand what it truly means to lead with heart. So thank you for that work and that service that you're doing in that space.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, it actually this just today, or I was somebody responded to a post on my YouTube, and it was related to disc, but this is a side issue. So this particular person, he's from the UK. I didn't know that. And when he first responded, he's like, "Oh, we don't believe in these. Like this is a useless assessment." Blah, blah, blah. And as I go back and forth with him, and I'm kind of curious, and like, "Why would you think that? Why do you see it that way?" He says, "You know what? The first thing he said is Brits aren't very like introspective or like reflective, like, and we don't really like it when someone's forcing an assessment down our throat. And so I feel like these different assessments don't work unless you have a desire to actually like be reflective, like a desire to do something." And so it kind of goes to your point of people have to have a awareness that they're leaving a hole for other people around them, and they have to have a desire to do something about it, to make a change that's going to have an impact even, outside themselves.
Part of my job includes being responsible for culture and inclusion, and helping to foster a culture of inclusion. And the way I talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion is from what you just described. I call it an inside out job. So what I mean by that is if the individual doesn't have the mindset or the heart, not curious and not willing and even want to learn more about what do we mean? Why is this important? And learn more about themselves and their own thought process when it comes to this space, I was like, there's not a training program, an assessment, or anything that's going to help move the needle. You're right. It first starts on the inside of the individual, and they have to have it first. They have to have the desire and the awareness that this is something that they prioritize and value. So great point to that.
Absolutely.
Do you have a story when you were in the traditional workspace and you had a leader that exemplified and modeled caring leadership that you could share and the impact that it had on you?
Yeah. This is my favorite manager ever. His name was Ed, and I talk about him at every time I have my keynote on caring leadership. So his legacy has lived on. But he was a guy who he was like just a regular guy. He was a VP, let's just say, in a county government. They call them the deputy county managers, and he was someone who it really did see me. One day I remember him, he would do this kind of thing a lot, but this particular time I remember I had been going to him kind of frustrated because he's the one who hired me, and I'd come from the private sector, not public. And he hired me to lead customer experience for this large county. And I was there and I was feeling like I was hitting a wall. Like I couldn't get a lot of stuff done. The people kept putting the red light up, like it wouldn't let me do what I needed to do. And I would go to him frustrated, and he would listen so well, but he could only do so much because he wasn't like the final decision maker. He had to be thinking about the whole team. And at some point I stopped coming to him, and I just kind of am being safe and just doing the things I can do without going to ask for permission. And he comes down to my office one day and he knocks on my door frame, and he's like smiling with this big smile on his face. And I'm thinking, oh, what did I do wrong? He comes in, he goes, "You got a minute?" I say, "Sure." So he comes down and he sits down across from me and he goes, "Listen, I know that you feel frustrated. Like, I know that you feel like, that we hired you to do all these things, and now that you can't do these things, and we're stopping you. And I just want to ask you to be patient with us. Will you just know that there's a lot going on, but that we see you and that we think you're doing a great job with what you have, and just, be patient. I'll be back with you, but I just want you to know, keep your chin up, and we do value the work that you're doing." And I remember in that moment, me being the one smiling from ear to ear when he left me. And he really, in that moment, just immediately uplifted me. It made me see my value, made me feel seen and validated in the moment. And in my mind, just that interaction, although he had done many of those types of things, was like the epitome of what caring leadership is. This is not rocket science. It's not like you have to reinvent the wheel. It's these small interactions consistently executed on that continue to let people be bought into your mission. And so as a leader, people are doing more for you and than they are for anything else. And so if you're good to them, you listen to them, you make them feel validated, then all of a sudden now when it's time for them, for you to, for them to ask you to do something that helps to drive their mission, now you're going to be more likely to do it because they were there for you.
Yes.
And so I'm in his corner, he's in my corner. And if you ever reached out to me to stay to help him, I would. So.
Yes, that's awesome. Awesome story. And to your point, it is not big, hairy things you have to do. It's so simple. It's just really just treating people kind and thinking about being very intentional about, I wonder how they may be feeling in this moment. How would I be feeling? Put yourself in their shoes and then act accordingly. Thanks for sharing that story.
Definitely.
Yeah. So across your career and your writing, what experiences have been most transformative in forming your perspective on compassionate and effective leadership?
I actually think that when I was working for that county that's in that same role, I was doing training, leading customer experience first and then organizational development. And when I was training in the role, I remember someone, like I was talking about empathy, and someone said, kind of challenged me, and they said, well, I think, compassion is a greater thing or something. And I said, well, tell me more, because I'm a curious person. And I'm also a person who's like, I want to be malleable. So I'm okay if someone can change my mind. I'm okay with that. I want them to try to change their mind, basically. And basically what it was for me is I had been speaking about empathy as if it was compassion, like my entire life. I was kind of melding the two together. And empathy is this: it's sensing the need of another person.
Okay.
It's sensing the need, and maybe even just like validating what their need is,
Yes.
But compassion is taking action to alleviate the pain of another person. Two different things. One is sensing, one is doing. Okay. And so what I realize is that when I'm talking about caring leadership, while empathy is embedded in compassion, it is compassionate action that I'm promoting. And that is like taking action on behalf of another. And it's when we take that next step from going from empathy to actually bringing it to life through action, that's when we get true buy-in, true empowerment, true team performance, all the things we want. It's when we stop short of that we don't get all the things we want out of work and life.
That is so very insightful. The difference between empathy and compassion. And I love how you describe one is sensing, but then taking it to the whole nother level. And compassion reminds me of allyship. It's action.
That's exactly right. Allyship is one element, or one, and when we talk about DEI especially, it's one element of compassion action.
Yes. Awesome. So what are the key principles behind leading with heart? How do you define effective leadership in today's very dynamic world?
Yeah. This is, it is evolving. It's evolving. The world's evolving. I'm evolving even with my view. And it's because, like I said, I believe that as humans, we should be malleable. Like we should be saying, I'm open for my mind to be changed, for my heart to be changed, for my position to be changed. And so while I will not, and I think I'm called to stay strong on the, continuing to evangelize caring leadership and leading with heart. I do know that one element of leading with heart is this idea of self-leadership and, of course, resilience, and like leading yourself more resiliently and also having a team that's resilient. Those are two behaviors embedded in caring leadership. And what I am noticing is that in these last few years, like through the pandemic, coming out of the pandemic, that self-leadership is needed now more than ever. So when you go back to that TED Talk, Rhoda, that you watched, 2019, I had that message in my heart then, and it is just as relevant today. And it is like, let us stop being victims of our circumstances.
Yes.
Let us find strength, our core through the pain that was delivered to us through our lives or in our current circumstances, to say, how does that fuel us to go forward? How can we be our own green light, our own caboose on the train, our own, not be a barrier for ourselves in the journey that we're on right now.
Right.
And I just had seen so much of this come up, and I guess it has been since 2018. But I kind of said, oh, I'm going to go away from that. Now that we're past the pandemic, I don't need to talk about it. But No, I think right now, in a really big way, we need help becoming um, resilient in a different way. What I
Yes.
mean by that is, I think we need to go back to the basics. I think we
Yes.
need to say, how do we evaluate our own values?
Mm-hmm.
How do we
Mm-hmm.
look at like our own internal drive, our
Mm-hmm.
own internal compass, our desire to give our own selves grace instead of waiting for somebody else to give it
Yes.
to us? How do we use that as a
Mm-hmm.
fuel that then allows us to show up more fully with
Mm-hmm.
more care and concern for others in a healthy way
Yes.
than to deplete ourselves first and expect ourselves to show up in a really great way for others?
Right.
It's just not
Right.
possible. So I call it unshakable leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a new iteration of
Yes.
the journey that I'm on. And I think that the world is on right now. So
Yes.
I think we got to go back to basics,
I
really.
agree. And Heather, we need you more now than ever, in my opinion. Just all the stressors that the current day is bringing, and economically, in all other areas of life, the impact that it's having. And we are expected to show up at work as our whole full best selves. And many of us that are in leadership, um, we sometimes think that we have to put our stuff on the back burner, but I think it's very important to show your vulnerability and the humanness of you, again, to help. It helps build psychological safety, it helps build trust, and it really helps build a fellowship when people feel like on your team that, oh, she's human too.
Yeah.
But I love this new reiteration, unshakable leadership. Yeah,
Hmm. Oh,
because
absolutely.
we
It
continue to
doesn't
have
mean,
things coming at
yes,
us.
that's exactly right. Someone, that
Uh,
friend said to me, "Oh my gosh, this makes so much sense." She said, What's happening with all of us is we feel like the ground is like
mhm.
shaking underneath our
Mhm.
feet. And
Mhm.
just because we're unshakable doesn't mean we're not shaken or doesn't mean we're
Right.
unshook. What
Right.
it means is that if we are leaning in hard and heavy on the foundation of self leadership, like again, those
Mhm.
guiding principles I
Mhm.
talked about with values and grace and all those
Mhm.
things, self care, resilience. And
Right.
at the same time, we say, okay, this, all of that work, that hard work allows us to lean in
Mhm.
a more genuine way to be the kind of caring leaders that the world needs. And that is what
Yes.
makes us unshakable. That's the
Yes.
foundation. That's where the ground is strengthened.
I had a
Yeah.
guest on last week, Candace Evans. She's the author of a book called Develop in Grace, Dig, DIG. And she
Ah,
talks about grace and how important it is to give ourselves grace. And it was all around self care and
mm,
things that have happened in her life that made her realize, you know what, I need to really focus on this and develop in grace and grow and really dig in to understand, because we can't be of help to anyone else if we're not any good. So to your point,
exactly.
self leadership is extremely important. So what are some practical strategies for fostering this self leadership, this unshakable leadership?
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's like you said it earlier, and I use
Mhm.
this, which is the inside out kind of work we
Mhm.
have to do.
Mhm.
We have to do we got to do the hard work internally to understand what our values are, and like how much do we embody the thing we say we value, or how
Mhm.
much is there a gap between
Yes.
the two. We have to look at, are we someone who is more of a flexible thinker, or are we kind of a fixed mindset person that doesn't
Mhm.
see that really our gift is every day getting up and then being able to try something new and learning from it, and instead
Mhm.
of getting it just right, like it being
Yes.
perfect versus just leaning towards progress. And again, giving ourselves grace in the moment,
Yes.
to not be exactly perfect, but to be
Mhm.
on the journey as a human. And that's
Right.
what makes us different from AI, right? We have a
Right.
journey we're on. We
Yes.
go through the ups and downs. We feel
Mhm.
the pain. We feel
Mhm.
the happiness. And so I'm just inviting people in to be really human,
Yes.
really, really very human with
Yes.
themselves and then with other people.
Yes. That's very
Yeah.
powerful. Yeah. So how does a leadership approach that prioritizes heart and empathy and compassion influence the overall organizational effectiveness in the employee experience?
Well, I mean, if you think about it from like the practical point, like someone, a team member comes, or it's a team member, whether you're the manager or not, it's just someone that's on your team comes to you, and they have an issue, and it would be your choice in that moment, depending on their issue, to kind of brush their concern underneath the rug,
Right.
or take some time to process it, or to be there with them and hold space for them. And it's in those human moments where people are feeling seen, heard, and validated, that they make a choice too. So you make the choice to be there for them, and then they make a choice on the other end to lock the heck in with whatever it is your needs and your initiatives are in your team, or with each other as teammates, or with you as a leader or executive level, to say, I'm going to lock in to the goals and the initiatives that we have in our organization. If you don't hold space for them, they make different choices too, which is, maybe I'll move on to another manager or another organization that does lock into my needs, and that shows up very human. So I don't think that the humans, our need to be human, and people's desire to encounter humanity at work is going to go away. I think it's just going to be more elevated, and it'll be our differentiator going forward.
Right. What are some signs or telltale signs for people who may be seeking to move on and looking for the right organization and the right leader that does lead with those values that are very human centric? What are some signs of organizations and or leadership for those that are out there interviewing and interacting with organizations?
I would be paying close attention to the questions that they ask. Are they talking a lot, or are they asking a lot of questions? Because if they're super curious about who you are, and like your unique value proposition that you bring, and some of your unique background, if they're curious about it and they sit and they listen silently, and they are really truly focused on you when you're doing it, I mean, that's important. I would say that if you don't get the opportunity to interact with humans as much, I would also go look on like Glassdoor and some of those other places where you're seeing reviews, you're seeing what people are saying about them. And see what kind of stories people are telling. And because sometimes those things are curated stories. And so you want to just be real clear about what's the real stuff. I mean, I would also say do informational interviews with people who are not in the leadership levels, but maybe people who are just team members, and see what has their experience been with that organization, and just kind of, get the real truth behind things. And you just got to do some digging. I wouldn't take everything on its surface, because if they're worth their weight, they probably have done a really good job of covering up some of the trail. But I would say those things. Watch out for the questions they ask. Talk to the people who are like on the front lines, if you can, in informational interviews, and then look at some of those sites that give you, the reviews and some of the feedback too.
Right. Have you had the opportunity to work with a company that, they partner with you because they had a challenge, a leadership challenge, and they embraced your model and your tactics and thought process around leadership? And if so, what type of changes did you see in that organization?
Yeah, that'd be my firm is Employee Phonetics, so we help organizations really listen more effectively to the leaders listen to themselves, and the leaders listen to the team, right? So it's like, again, how do we strengthen the leaders from within? It's the inside out approach. How we strengthen them from within, so that then they can show up with more heart and understand that their relationships are strengthened as they strengthen themselves from the inside out. And so, yes, I've worked with public and private sector organizations, and what we see is a team of employees who are bought in to drive the organization forward from a successful place. I mean, when they feel like they have a bigger say, when they're on committees, when they're involved in the change the organization is seeking in a really active way, not just in a small way, but in a big way. Now they feel more empowered. They feel more powerful. Their voices now are heard, and they're like, "Ooh, now I'm ready to go to bat for this manager, for this team, for this organization." So we have seen that. We've seen double-digit, employee engagement scores going up because they had more buy-in, because their voice was heard. So I love the work that we do, because I do feel like the impact is. You might not see it right away, but in year two, because it's an evolution. It takes a while for employees to trust that the change is real and valid. And so we just work with the leadership team to make sure that we institute things that keep that there in the long term. So
I love the mission of the work that you're doing. One of the audiences that I really have a strong passion for are like emerging leaders, like they're future leaders, they're aspiring leaders. So what actionable advice would you offer to emerging leaders who aspire to lead with heart in challenging environments? Did I lose you? Oh, no, you. Did you hear me?
I would say
Okay.
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I did. I would say if it's, if they're wanting to try to lead with heart and they're in that kind of high potential role where maybe the organization, is grooming them, or maybe the organization isn't grooming them. Like I would definitely tell those people to look at how they can be on committees, how they can get involved in programs, how they can, if there are like leadership development programs or high potential type programs where they're it's already organized and you want to be a part of it. Just pipe up, use your voice and let people know you're interested in being a future, manager, because I do believe that leadership starts from within, and it doesn't require a title.
Right.
So I'm more hesitant to say future leader, because I think we can be a leader no matter where we're at.
No matter
but
where.
really
True.
to say, exactly. If I want to be a future manager, then or supervisor, then I want people to know, because you don't want people guessing. You gotta advocate for yourself. No one's going to advocate for you more than you will yourself. Let your manager know. Let the people above them know. If you see committees forming, raise your hand. Raise your hand, even if it's something you don't love to do, because they want to know that you're bought into helping the organization improve, even when it's something that's not like necessarily fun.
Right.
I would definitely raise your hand.
Yes, that's a good point. And I do want to, I totally agree with you. We're all leaders first, leaders of self. And then if you're interested in becoming a leader of others, that's great advice. Thank you for sharing that. So, Heather, looking ahead, what shifts do you foresee in leadership styles and practices? We becoming more of a hybrid work environment. Some companies are fully remote, and that requires, I find that the hybrid work environment is one of the most challenging, because you have to tap into the foundational leadership skills that you're accustomed to when you have staff in person, but then you have staff who are remote, and it's like out of sight, out of mind. So you have to be very intentional. So what are your thoughts around, what do you foresee in leadership styles and practices, and how they're going to evolve over time?
I would say that we're probably going to see a lean in on things like AI coaches, where we're going to have, tech's going to be a part of how are we analyzing people on video, and what did you miss that I did, that I did, like you didn't see a particular thing, but I saw the AI coach might recommend some things, right? And so I think we're going to see that lean in happen, and at the same time, I think that we're going to continue to know that we're going to need to lean into the human-centered skills of listening closely, responsiveness, compassion, and action. The things that we're talking about now, I don't think they're going away. I think they're going to be more and more increased. And while there may be some roles that are kind of taken over by AI, I think there's just no way to replace that human contact of, like, that manager Ed who came down to my office, knocked on the door, smiled at me, gave me that sense of being uplifted. That is never going to go away. It's always going to be needed, whether it's on a Zoom call, Teams call, in person, on email, on text. We're going to need that. We're going to still need to have that very human side of us. And I think that that's going to be a path forward that will just stand the test of time.
I agree. And it's even more so, to your point, because when you're remote, you can, once you're off of that call, that Zoom call or that Teams call, it can feel very lonely. And you don't know what people are faced with when they're working in a home environment either. So it does require us to lean more into that human-centered leadership. So, Heather, what's next for you? What are some things that's in the work? What would you love people to know about you, and how can they find you and follow you?
I mean, probably the best way to follow me is on LinkedIn. Just find Heather Younger. Next for me, I have another book coming out fall of next year. And then I'm probably going to take a little pause for at least a year to contemplate what's next. That book will be on teamwork and burnout. I'm also working on other LinkedIn learning courses. I'm a keynote speaker, so I speak to all kinds of audiences. I'm really excited. I'm speaking to the biggest audience yet in October. It's 12,000. Chief nursing officers and nurses, so I'm very, very excited about that one. Having a broader impact, giving back, thinking about potentially having some kind of institute, nonprofit work, something where I'm touching more younger generations with this concept of internal out, inside out leadership,
Yes.
where you're just like working on you, strengthening you, being a good self leader to start, and then saying, okay, I'm prepared now to pour into, in a real caring way, other people after that. So I'm feeling called in that direction. I just don't know exactly how that's going to play out. So that's what I would say. I have 4 kids, and 2 of them are going off to do kind of, one's going to be a missionary, and one is going off to the U.S. Naval Academy. And I'll have 1 kid left home, and 1 in the next couple of years will be graduating from engineering school. So my life is very full with kids.
It is. And you're very accomplished. And I want to congratulate you and commend you on all that you've accomplished. And your brand is so powerful and passionate. I love your website. If those that will be watching this, I hope you go check our website out. It's so fun and so full of energy and life. And again, Heather, I just really appreciate that we cross paths, and we cross paths virtually on LinkedIn, and and we've stayed connected here and there. I've subscribed to your newsletter. I listen to your podcast, all the things. And I really just appreciate you, and I look up to you as someone I aspire to be like. So thank you for setting a model and being a blueprint for the rest of the world, and it's doing this very important work. This is mission work that you're doing.
It really is.
It really is.
It
So
is.
thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And thanks for having me, and
You're
for remembering me as well, and just for being there to support me on the journey. Appreciate you.
Yes. No, thank you. Okay, so we're going to call it a wrap again. What an incredible conversation with Heather Younger. Her insights remind us that leadership is less about titles and more about how we make people feel day in and day out, as you heard in the story that she shared about Ed, who is a legacy leader. I call those legacy leaders that have a positive impact. You never forget them. Leading with heart isn't just a philosophy. It's a practice that can shift team dynamics. It can elevate trust. It can spark lasting change within any organization. And if today's conversation sparks something in you, I encourage you to check out Heather's latest work. Follow her on LinkedIn, and for more guidance on bringing humanity back to leadership. And thank you for joining us on Breakthrough Conversations with Rhoda and Company. Until next time, keep leading with heart, stay curious, and keep breaking through.
Hey, what's your secret? You got the kind of vibe that leaves me speechless. It could be model multitasking genius. Yeah, you got it all. Hey, what's your story? A kick-ass mom and 40 under 40. A soccer practice in your high heel glory. Yeah, you do it all.